We would like to acknowledge that we are here today on the land of the Darug people. The Darug people are the traditional owners of this land, and we pay respects to the past, present, and future elders.
Okay, so I'm Melissa Eves. I have a Bachelor in Behavioural Studies, in parenthesis, Psychology. I'm a married mother of one, and I live in the Parramatta area. Anyway, and yes, I met the lovely Rose, and she's invited me to do a podcast because there is something that we would like to discuss. Anyway, I'll hand it over to Rose.
Thank you, Mel. And I am Rose Erkan, and I'm a researcher / activist and very passionate about societal topics and just passionate about this land that we're on. And me and Mel do live in the Parramatta area, so we are trying to prevent anything happening to this beautiful land of ours, and we just like to put our foot down where the line is and then basically say no when we need to say no.
That's right, and save the environment that we live in.
Exactly.
And okay, so we research scientific papers, a technical workbook on EMFs, as well as peer-reviewed papers from university websites, and also Environmental Health Trust, which is a resource website with collated EMF information. The links to the reference material we used for this talk will be listed below.
We have a general understanding of the implications of electromagnetic frequencies and how this can cause issues in the environment as well as health. Our aim is to raise awareness and not allow 5G to occur due to these detrimental effects that have been measured and proven with the research that we've done.
Exactly. Okay, so we'll give a background of electromagnetic frequencies. Rose is going to read from this booklet that she found.
Yes, yep. So thank you, Mel. I'll just do a brief intro on what I found about electromagnetic fields. So this workbook I found on the EH Trust website, which we'll put the link below. Everything will be basically linked, so for your own reference. But this workbook was produced in 1990, and it was funded by the New York State Department and Department of Labor. And it just goes through what EMFs are basically. People that are new to this topic, and also has covered scientific measurements based on electric and magnetic fields. So an electromagnetic field is a composition of both a magnetic field and an electric field. So basically, electric fields are invisible lines of forces which result when two different electric charges come close to one another, causing electric current to flow. An electric field loses strength when you move away from it. So this is a quotation from the workbook. It also goes on to say electric fields can be shielded or reduced in strength so that exposure is limited. So that's an electric field. A magnetic field. A magnetic field. Electric currents produce magnetic fields. A magnetic field is an invisible line of force which may be imagined as a set of loops encircling an electric line. Magnetic field strength depends on the amount of the current, amperage, and is measured in milligauss. Sorry, milligauss. Thanks. And then sometimes they are measured in Tesla. Although magnetic fields fall off as we move away from them, they cannot be shielded easily and are therefore potentially more dangerous. So that's a magnetic field.
So then you have different kinds of electromagnetic fields.
Yes. Just quickly before you go on to that,
Yep.
So I just wanted to finish off with the... Sorry, Mel.
That's right. You go.
Yeah. It's just information on the electromagnetic fields and what they are, just continuing on to that.
Yeah.
So we understand that it's a composition of both the electric field and the magnetic field. So they are both interwoven at a right angle and combined become electromagnetic fields. So this is basically what is pulsating or occurring with the
And that's
field.
that's how it's transmitted in waves.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll read the excerpt from that
Yeah.
and then I'll pass it over to you quickly.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, just quickly. Wherever electric current is flowing, there are electric and magnetic fields. That means there are fields created by large and small power lines, lighting fixtures and wiring in our homes and our workplaces, electrical equipment at work, and all electrical appliances. So this thing, just to interject quickly, is actually from 1990. So obviously technology hasn't come as far as it has today, and there's no reference to modern day technology, so they've only referenced lighting fixtures and power lines. And I'll just continue. Electric and magnetic fields exist in all living things. They occur naturally in the atmosphere. For example, powerful electric fields are produced when thunderclouds discharge electricity through lightning. And the Earth itself is magnetically charged, making tracks by compass readings possible. We can think of EMFs as invisible lines of force. They are like waves created by a stone tossed in a pond. Electromagnetic waves radiate through space at the speed of light, which is 186,000 miles per second. EMFs consist of two fields, electric and magnetic, which move at right angles to each other, which I've already covered. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Okay, so I was going to say, you make a reference to 186,000 miles per second, which is the equivalent to 300 million meters, so just in case, because obviously we deal in meters or kilometers.
Yes.
So just to give that
Oh
a
yeah,
quick
thank you.
breakdown.
Yeah, right. Oh, you did the conversion.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Anyway,
It
so
is a US based workbook.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, going on to the different kinds of electromagnetic fields and how they're actually measured. So you have this basically a graph that's called the electromagnetic spectrum. So what it does is it explains how the radiation, which is what EMF is basically emitting.
Yes.
So to break it down, you have non-ionizing radiation. And to start off with, you have extremely low frequency, which is known as ELFs for short. Anyway, so an ELF is just 1 hertz, but it travels in 300 million
Yes.
wavelengths or meters, 300 million meters as a wavelength.
Mhm.
And then it moves up to 60 hertz. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yeah, no, that's correct.
Okay.
Yes. I was just going to quickly mention,
Oh, yeah.
like in accordance to the diagram that you're looking at, just to quickly brief, the frequency and wavelength are inversely related. So the one that you're looking at, they're both related due to the hertz and the meters, like the wavelength and
that's
the
right.
Yeah,
It's how it's traveling.
how it's traveling. Yes,
How it's traveling.
Yeah,
You
right.
are right. I'm glad you mentioned that. That does help. Okay, so then the next one up is about 60 hertz, which travels around about 3 million.
Yeah.
And then you can go up to 100 hertz. And the other thing is because, as you start going into hertz as well, it then also correlates to something else. But I'll continue with this graph. So very low frequency, which is also VLFs, or shortwave AM radio bands, which is 1 million hertz. And in wavelengths, it travels at 300 meters per second.
So, just quickly, because the diagram that you're looking at, just to explain.
Yep.
Do you want to read through that?
Yeah, I can. Okay, so backing up.
The frequency and the wavelength, and how they're both interrelated. I think it's
to make it a little bit
easier
to understand. Okay, so electromagnetic fields differ depending upon the frequency, wavelength, and the intensity of the field. A frequency is the number of waves passing a point in 1 second. The length of a wave, as it is known, is a wavelength. The intensity or the strength of the wave is the other. The number of times the waves of an EMF move back and forth or alternate in 1 second is its frequency. The electric power used in North America, take that out.
That's okay.
Yeah, I was going to say. We are mostly concerned in the, oh no, just scrap that actually.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah,
Okay.
just don't worry. Yeah. Just probably go back to the table.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to say was the EMFs. Yep. Yeah, that's
Okay.
good. Yeah. Just
All
continue.
right,
It's
continue. Okay,
Yep.
so then, as we're saying, so we also have VLFs, as I was saying, so shortwave radio. Then we move into microwaves and TV and FM radio, which is around about 100 million hertz, which is about 3 meters in wavelength.
Yeah.
A radar as well is 10. Goodness.
10
10,
million.
yeah, 10 yeah,
billion,
that'd be 10
sorry.
billion.
10 billion.
Yeah, which gets less. It gets 0.03 of 1 inch.
So it's actually the
wavelength becomes smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
The greater the hertz becomes. So the wavelength becomes shorter. It becomes a pulse. So I actually have a different sort of spectrum which sort of nuts it down a little bit easier, because I was going to explain that now, because of the technology that we have in this day and age.
Oh yes. It's more relevant.
Yeah, because that's the thing. I was reading off what Rose had given about the actual electronic workbook that was saying about electromagnetic frequencies. Anyway, so the other thing is, so now we deal, as we were saying, about hertz, but in particular we deal with megahertz, which is 1 megahertz is 1 million cycles per second. Then the definition of a gigahertz is 1 billion cycles per second. So these are more the gigahertz that we're dealing with. So a cell phone tower, for example, is anywhere between 900 megahertz to 2.4 gigahertz. Yeah. But we believe that it's probably a bit stronger than that. But obviously we don't have the capabilities yet to actually measure it, and we will eventually get to that.
Yes.
And the other thing is with a baby monitor has about 50 megahertz to 2.4 gigahertz as well. But then so
that's actually nearly a cell tower.
Yeah, almost a cell tower. Yeah, that's correct. And you're putting it right next to your child.
Yeah.
Anyway, a microwave oven is also about 2.4 gigahertz, and a mobile phone is anywhere between 900 megahertz to 2.4 gigahertz. So, and then you have like body screens that they put in airports, which is 0.2 to 4 terahertz, but I won't even go into terahertz because that's next level.
Yeah.
Anyway, so anyway, moving on.
Yeah. So there's proper terminology for the
for all the
frequencies,
wavelengths,
I guess. Yeah, because they do go up so high. So that's why they've named them, gigahertz, megahertz.
Gigahertz.
Yeah, gigahertz.
And so forth.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And petahertz. Anyway, but we won't go there. Anyway, just to give a bit of a background on ionising and non-ionising radiation. Yes. So but I was also just going to quickly say ionising radiation, which is when the particles just break up into nothingness because they become pulses. We're dealing with ultraviolet light. Okay. So which is what comes from the sun. So obviously don't spend over 2 hours in the sun, otherwise you get sunburnt. Anyway, nor stand in an X-ray machine for more than 10 minutes because you probably fry to death. But anyway, moving on. I'm digressing. Anyway.
Yeah. So okay. Yep. So just wanted to quickly check. Maybe we can define non-ionizing and ionizing radiation.
That's a good idea, actually.
Did you want me to?
Yeah, if you want to read that from that workbook, that would be brilliant.
Yeah,
yes.
I'll do that. So just in reference to that table that Mel was having a look at, which we'll
also put up.
Yeah, we'll put up as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll just read out again from the workbook because I think it's a good reference point. So when something is ionized, this is about what is ionizing radiation. When something is ionized, it becomes electrically charged. When ionization occurs within a living cell, the chemical structure of the cell can be changed. Exposure to ionizing radiation can damage our cells. It may damage DNA, the genetic material in our cells, causing severe illness and or death. So this is the ionizing radiation, which is obviously on the higher spectrum of the radiation.
It's good that you actually mentioned the ionizing because, that's what I mean. It's electrically charged particles, because that's the one thing it's missing is this is when it's still particles, but this is when it becomes so small and fine that it's just really, really bright light.
It's only light. You can't even. There's no particles.
Particles. There's hardly any particles, but that's how damaging it is because it is such a sharp wavelength.
Burst.
Burst of
yeah,
energy.
because the frequency
Correct.
is the speed of light. They were saying.
Yeah, that's right. So this is what it's coming down to. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
What is non-ionizing radiation, you may ask? Non-ionizing radiation is a low-frequency form of radiation that is in the form of visible light, infrared, microwave radio frequencies, and very low frequencies, and of course, extremely low frequencies. Although this type of radiation do not alter the atoms they stem from, but such as microwaves can cause burns and possible damage to the reproductive system. And then you move further into the pulsing light or increasing the wavelength into smaller durations, and it is ionizing radiation. When something is ionized, it becomes electrically charged. When ionization occurs within a living cell, the chemical structure of the cell can be damaged. Exposure to ionizing radiation can damage our cells. It may damage DNA, the genetic material in our cells, causing severe illness and or death. So that's what it is about.
So two ends of the spectrum.
That's correct.
Non-ionizing and ionizing.
Ionizing, yes. Anyway, I was going to start reading one of the papers that I found because it was to do with basically germs in the environment.
Okay, yes,
And,
please do.
Yeah, so putting it into perspective, and this is the thing, some of the papers that I'm reading from are from probably around about anywhere from 2012 onwards, but I will actually list the date as I read the paper, and they are from different journals, and I think this one's actually from a biological medical journal. Anyway, so putting it into perspective, mobile phones emit anywhere between 900 megahertz to 2.4 gigahertz, as I was saying before, when they are switched on and being used. And mobile phone towers have also been shown to emit 900 megahertz to 2.4 gigahertz too. The first paper I would like to draw from and draw our listeners' attention to is by David Crabtree, Brendan Herrera and Sanghoon Kang, and the response of the human bacteria to static magnetic field and radiofrequency or electromagnetic fields. Just for those who are not familiar with the term static means ongoing magnetic field, one that does not change from low to high frequencies. These researchers wanted to investigate the effects of electromagnetic frequencies from mobile phone use on skin microbiota. And just to say what that is, which is bacteria or germs that live on the skin. They also mention medical studies which is focusing on the effects of the brain tumours, such as acoustic neuromas, which is in relation to something Rose is going to say later on, which is a non-cancerous tumour. That's what acoustic neuromas are. That affects hearing and balance when they press on the nerves in the inner ear.
Oh, okay.
And did you want to say something, Rose?
Yeah, just about the brain tumour. Because maybe we could discuss as a banter, and then I'll just quickly mention the research that I had. Yeah, exactly.
Please do.
Is that in relation to the same tumour, or is that different?
Well, it just makes a passing reference to it. So but no, please continue.
Yeah, because it is a type of brain cancer, the glioblastomas. And it's linked to cell phone radiation, and it's actually increasing in young Americans alongside central nervous system tumors, which is something different. But there is a lot of evidence and research to say that there has been a rise in brain cancer, and in relation to cell phone radiation in particular, because the cancer that has been discovered in the brain had to do with certain sections of the area.
The base of the brain.
Yeah, and also the side where the cell phones had been placed. And so that was the most effective area. Affected, sorry, not effective. And so they had found tumours in that area and diagnosed it based on the radiation coming from the cell phones. And I thought I'd just reference that.
Yeah, because I was also going to say I found something similar as well. Glioma is a type of tumor found in the brain and the spinal cord.
Oh,
So
right.
yeah, and that was the
So
thing. Yeah, I was I spoke to you about the other day, or I
yeah,
sent
yeah,
to you because I
yeah.
was
I
like,
did see that.
yeah,
Yeah. So the spinal cord thing probably relates to the nervous
yeah,
system,
that's
actually.
exactly right. Yeah,
So they
there's a
are,
crossover.
yeah, exactly. So the research that we've both been doing, I guess, even though they might use different terminology, they might use different sort of areas from health,
Yeah,
they do lead to the same sort of outcomes, like, brain tumors, nervous system, spinal cord, which
that's
is
right.
all the same sort of areas. It's not
Yeah.
like we're saying, the foot or something. So
Yeah, that's exactly right. Which I'm sure would have a different name, that tumour.
exactly, yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, so just to continue on with this paper that I was reading from, because they just make a reference to it, from
Yes.
electromagnetic frequencies. These researchers also explain, and this is the direct quote, EMF frequency ranges from between 0 and 300 gigahertz. A radio frequency ranges between 30 kilohertz to 300 gigahertz. And the range for extremely low frequencies, or ELFs, as we mentioned before, is between 3 to 300 hertz, which power supply lines are around 50 to 60 hertz, to put it into some sort of frame.
Yeah.
As these authors explain, and I quote, radio frequency electromagnetic fields is generated by many electronics and household devices and appliances, such as microwave ovens, which run from 3 to 30 megahertz, and cell phones from 3 megahertz to 3 gigahertz. ELFs, or extremely low frequencies, and radio frequency radiation generated by electronic devices have a non-thermic effect on biological systems, while stronger ionizing radiation, such as X-rays or gamma rays, can directly damage DNA structures of biological systems. And then they go on to say a SAR, which is a specific absorption rate, that's what SAR stands for, is often used to estimate the rate of energy deposition per unit mass. So what this means, and is explained by the Federal Communications Commission in the United States, is that a SAR testing uses standardized models of the human head and body that are filled with liquids that simulate the RF absorption characteristics of different human tissues. Another point, and you know what, I actually think that quote may have been quoted from somewhere else, and I think I had to put that in to explain what a SAR was.
Okay.
So I need to just put that out there, because
fine.
that may not turn up in this paper in the below link, but I will also definitely put a link in to suggest go to that for that information.
Yeah, that's
so
good.
that's a side point. I should have said that to begin with.
No, that's okay. So I just wanted to understand what a SAR was. Is that some sort of...
So that's what it stands for, specific absorption rate.
Yeah, okay.
And so that's how the radiation is per unit mass, so how it's actually coming to the person or whatever object they're measuring it. So they will always use specific absorption rate.
Oh, I see. Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
so SAR is the acronym for it.
Yeah, I got it.
But
Thank you.
yeah, they add them. I just needed to add that because it's one of those. It's a term that will appear a lot. So it's just a measuring term of how you can measure it against a smaller being, whether it be a rat, a human, or what have you. So yeah.
Okay, that makes sense now. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry. Okay. Anyway, I'm going back to it. Anyway, so back to the paper again. Another point that Crabtree raised, and this is a direct quote, a common beneficial effect of EMF is the augmentation of antibiotic activities. Several antibiotics have been shown to be more potent in low electromagnetic frequencies. Yeah, which is interesting. Yeah. Okay, so thus often sickness is attributed to disrupted microbiota and imbalanced human microbiota relationships. For example, late onset autism has... No, I need to get rid of that. Don't use that. Okay, the other thing is, okay, so they go on. Their hypothesis that they wanted to prove was, therefore, we investigated the effect of weak static magnetic frequencies and simulated radio frequency, electromagnetic frequencies, using the standard laboratory cultures. and isolates from human subjects' skin. There have been no studies targeted the response of human skin microbiota under EMF yet, and our main hypothesis is that the growth patterns of different species of human skin bacteria will respond differently to both static magnetic frequencies and radio frequencies, or EMFs.
Okay.
And so, for the static magnetic field experiment, their bacteria commonly found from human microbiota was Escherichia. I hope I'm saying that. Oh, yeah, Escherichia coli, or E. coli, which is found in the environment and foods and, intestines of people and animals, just as a, side point. Then there is the Pseudomonas, Aeruginosa bacteria. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing all of these terms wrong. I do apologise.
Yeah.
Responsible for urinary tract infections and respiratory infections and dermatitis, soft tissue infections, and it also affects the bones and the joints and the gastrointestinals. Anyway, and then they also mention Staphylococcus epidermis, which is part of our normal flora and skin bacteria. However, can cause infections in the intravenous drug users, newborns, elderly, and those using catheters, and is antibiotic resistant. So these are, I just wanted to explain, I should have said that. So those three terms, I put in brackets what these bacteria affect and how they occur.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these bacteria are found in people that...
They're found on everyone.
Oh, found on everyone.
Yeah, every person, has these bacteria. But obviously it's not... Okay, so with Staphylococcus, it is on our skin. But the thing is, it's usually when it enters into our skin or into our bodies that it can, it can become...
Oh, okay. Like...
antibiotic resistance or so forth. So everyone everyone carries this on their skin, but
it just needs
and that's what I mean. Our immune system usually wards off against it. So, our immune systems. But as you get to elderly and newborns, they don't have an immune system anymore.
Course.
It's either broken down or it's non-existent because they've just been born.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. So that's And it's interesting.
Just to get an understanding. Sorry, because I'm not that technical as you. So
that's right.
That you explain.
No, that's right. And I'm like, I don't want to say I'm like, I know this. No, I don't know it all.
So I just did want to,
that's right. Clarify.
That's all. No, that's good. That's good.
Okay, so continuing on, and what the authors were saying, they said these three bacteria were incubated in a laboratory under three different incubation conditions. One was random, which is inhomogeneous and in a magnetic field. And then there was one that was homogeneous magnetic field, which is, all together, and a control group. Now, the control group was background magnetic fields generated in the laboratory facilities. So, whatever was around in the environment, they couldn't help. The results on static magnetic fields in the control group found that growth of Pseudomonas aeruginosa was suppressed significantly, and the Staphylococcus epidermis was marginally suppressed, which means it wasn't growing, while E. coli was significantly increased. Between the random and the homogenized magnetic fields, the growth response was marginally different except for the E. coli, whose growth was significantly increased. So under random field over the homogeneous field, the second experiment consisted of, so they then got, and this is their quote, 4 volunteers between the ages of 20 and 22 were selected at random for sampling of skin bacteria from the hand, cheek and chin. Each volunteer completed a cell phone use survey before sampling.
Okay.
The demographics were one Caucasian male with a high cell phone usage and one Caucasian female with very high phone usage as well. And then
Does
two.
it say, sorry,
Yeah.
what's considered a high cell phone usage?
It doesn't really say. So that's what I mean. They've answered a questionnaire, but no, it didn't.
Okay.
I mean, they sort of say that how often they spent on the phone later on.
Oh.
But obviously, what they did say was also where are we? They had two Asian females with moderate cell phone usage. 24 individual colonies were isolated in total of the bacteria. That is, the researchers were half of all the isolated colonies recovered were from hands, which was 12 out of 24.
From what, sorry?
Colonies of bacteria. So
Recovered from where though?
from the hands.
From hands.
Yeah,
Yeah,
from hands.
Okay.
Sorry. So 12 out of 24, and then 6 were recovered each from chin and cheeks, and 14 colonies were recovered from 2 light use Asian female subjects, as I said.
Well, that looks like a direct correlation.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it will go further into that. So subjects, which they called subjects A and B.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, subjects A and B. And 10 of these, bacteria were recovered from 2 heavy use Caucasian subjects, which was C and D, for want of better names for them. Of the total of the 24 isolated colonies from the 4 subjects, a total of 8 showed altered growth patterns due to exposure to radiofrequency, electromagnetic frequencies. The growth of the 3 was colonies, altered at high power and low power respectively. Only one, which was a hand sample from subject B, experienced a significantly increase in growth at both high and low power.
Wow.
The growth of 5 isolated colonies was increased, while growth of 2 of them was suppressed. So even though it's causing some to grow, some are being suppressed at the same time.
That's a bit random.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, and then they go on to say all the isolated colonies identified were members of the genus Staphylococcus.
Okay.
So they had Pasteri, I think, or Pastemi, which in brackets it triggers wound and UTI infections, and the other one was S. Lugden.
Okay.
Lugdunensis, goodness, I can't even pronounce these, which causes skin and soft tissue infections.
That's okay, yeah.
And then Staphylococcus epidermis, which was explained before.
Yeah.
The growth of the majority of isolated colonies were not affected, as we suspect. This may be due to the radiofrequency electromagnetic frequencies generated settings. So the power settings were to stimulate the average exposure in which EMF power is much stronger when cell phone is in use. So what they're saying is, when they did this experiment, they obviously did it in an environment where, they're going off what people are saying. So what the information that they've told them from a survey. Yeah, so they've quoted, as we suspect, this may be due to the radio frequency and electromagnetic frequencies generation setting. The power settings were to stimulate the average exposure in which EMF power is much stronger when cell phone is in use. Okay, the more realistic experimental setting of oscillation of the RF EMF would have produced more obvious responses. That's their quote, and that's them interpreting their results of what they found.
So are these laboratory experiments or are they?
No, these
survey?
are on these are now on the people. See, yeah.
Oh, I see. I thought they were okay. Yeah, no, that's
yeah.
why
At first, that. So the first experiment that they did was in the laboratory. So they wanted to see what was actually going to grow.
Okay.
Okay, and then they've put it to being exposed to the actual environment. So sorry, I should start again. One was static electromagnetic frequencies.
Okay.
Which was in the environment.
Yes.
And then this is to do with the radio frequency from
From
the
a cell phone.
From the cell phone.
Right. Okay, I got it now.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, I probably should have explained that a bit better, or probably put something in between.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. You've explained it now, so it makes
Yeah.
sense to me.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Sorry to the listeners out there. That was also very, I think I went a bridge too far there. Anyway, moving on.
It's fine. It's fine.
So, yeah. And then another direct quote following on from that. So, out of those 12 isolated colonies from the hands, growth of those 6 was substantially altered, 4 increased and 2 suppressed. While only 1 out of 6 chin colonies, growth was increased under high power. No colony from cheek and altered growth patterns. So subject B, of the Asian descent, considered herself a light cell phone user, using her phone for calls a few times a day. Had multiple isolated colonies affected from the hand, including 1 at low power.
Okay.
And it seemed to have the most susceptible bacteria to alteration of growth patterns.
Really?
Yeah, which is
That's
strange. Yeah. So the low cell phone usage and lack of exposure to RF EMF could be linked to a high chance of affected growth of bacteria. That's what the researchers are saying.
Do you think that as the cell phone is dying out, it emits more power or something?
No, what I think they're trying to get at, or what they're trying to say here, and forgive me if I'm wrong, please, scientists, please come back and tell me if I've got this wrong. What I think they're trying to say is that if there is a person that doesn't use a mobile phone very often, as high users, you see, I think that the bacteria evolves, okay? So if you're in a high frequency environment, eventually you will become accustomed to your mobile phone to a certain degree, right? Because you're using it so often, or your laptop or what have you.
Yeah.
But because this Asian subject is not using her phone as often as the others, her bacteria is going, it's growing or it's increasing because it's not used to the radiation.
Oh, I see.
So that's why I think it's having that's why she's getting adverse results, and that's what they're saying is a bit surprising. But in saying that, they also then went on to say that the other girl that they did the interview with was another Asian subject. They actually were roommates. They lived together. So it's happening to one but not the other one. And they were both saying that they were moderate or light cell phone users.
So probably their biochemistry
is
has
different. It's different.
An effect.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
So
it affects DNA. It affects people differently.
Yeah.
So what were you going to say, Rose?
Oh yeah, no, just about the low power, cell phone.
Yeah, the low power.
I found that interesting.
The low cell phone usage and lack of exposure to RF EMF could be linked to a high chance of affected growth of bacteria.
Oh, I thought you said low power. No, sorry. My mistake, sorry. I misheard that, yeah.
No, that's all right. Maybe I didn't read it properly.
No.
The 2 heavy users, subject C and D, text or other forms of phone use at every 30 minutes or less, had only 3 out of 10 isolated colonies, showing altered growth patterns. That's what I was saying before.
Yeah.
And that's their direct quote.
Yeah,
With these habits, their skin microbiota might have adapted to, this is what they were saying, to a high RF EMF exposure environment, and so showed minimum growth pattern alterations. As you can see, or should I say heroes, David Crabtree, Brandon Herrera, and Sanghoon Kang have investigated and seen changes in the bacteria on the human skin.
Yeah, right.
Which, obviously is interesting in itself.
Yeah.
What worries me about their findings is it is still early days with this research. This paper was only published in 2017, so it's recent, but it's still early days because this was the first time that they'd actually said they'd found something or a paper. They were the first ones that they knew of to write a paper about
the
mobile,
germs.
about mobile phones and bacteria on the skin.
Wow.
In areas where we use our mobile phones, hands, cheeks,
That's interesting.
and chins. Anyway, yeah, I think a further concern I have is the mobile phone user that uses her phone the least had the most, active bacteria.
Yeah,
That's
they'd
worrying.
probably have to do other sort of research, test on different
People,
yeah,
like different ethnicities, different. And the other
exactly.
thing is because
You
of
could,
children. You know, if we
yes.
give someone that's not around a mobile phone very often and give it to them and they're holding it, could lead to all sorts.
Yeah, that's the problem because they do absorb a lot of the stuff, anything.
EMFs.
Yeah, quicker than us, really, don't they?
Yeah,
Like they learn quicker than us. They absorb. They do.
They
At
really
such a fast pace as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, my child's even showing me how to use my mobile phone to this day. I'm like, how did you do that?
Exactly. They're really quick. Yeah.
They're very switched on.
Yeah, that's true.
And so, I was going to say, did you want to add anything more to it or any?
No, actually, I hadn't done any research on the germs personally. I mean, the bacteria, sorry.
Yeah.
So I don't actually know anything. Like, this is new to me. So it's good that you've done the research from this paper.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did have other sort of medical things that I had researched. I could probably go on further from the brain tumor evidence that
please.
we're talking about. Yeah, I mean, because I did look at the glioblastomas that I was telling you about, and then in the nervous system tumors, I had seen in precisely the areas of the brain that absorb most of the radiation emitted or received by phones. Yes, I did mention that. So yeah, so basically it did tie in sort of with the bacteria stuff as well.
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
it is the same positions that are getting absorbed. And there has been, government data and studies. So in the Danish parliament, they've had data show a near doubling, basically, of glioblastomas since the year 2000. Goodness. So, the evolution of technology between the year 2000 and now is pretty much on point. So
that's exactly right, isn't it? So it's already having a fundamental effect, basically.
Yeah, on their society in Denmark. So it does have that study, in specific to that brain cancer. And like I said, that brain cancer or tumor, that one is actually linked and specific to cell phone radiation.
That's right, because it's appearing in the areas where it is used.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's medically proven, and it is an actual diagnosis that you can search. Yeah. So it's doubled, and that's a bit worrying in Denmark. And in England, between 1995, which is probably just before the cusp of a lot of the mobile phone technology, or maybe just
the beginning of mobile phones, because Nokia's, we were using them in like 1990. Yeah, 1994, 1995.
Yeah, it probably...
No, maybe 95, 96.
Yeah, around that mark. Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And then to 2015. Yeah, the same thing. The glioblastomas. Yep. They're more than doubled in England. So that's probably a little bit understandable. I mean, not that I'm saying that this is good or bad or whatever, but it is a bit before the year 2000. So I'm guessing, 95... It was probably GPRS. I think that was the first sort of... Is that the one that came out? The cell phone...
I just remember the Nokias. I remember the bricks, the old bricks.
Yeah,
not GPS.
No, not GPS. GPRS. The
global positioning. No.
It was the what do you call that? The cellular data network.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So not we're on 4G now. So I think it
was. Oh, okay. The beginning of the network.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So it wasn't where we're at now.
Yeah.
And then so those two studies confirmed the increase in glioblastomas.
Yeah.
And then there's another study in 2017 from the Bio-Initiative Working Group. I'm actually, maybe if that's... Yeah. Is that the same study that you were referring to? Because I did find quotations from papers, so I'm not sure if that's the same.
It may have been something different. I did use Bio-Initiative. I did mention it somewhere, but I can't remember where it was. Oh, goodness. It's one of the papers, but yeah.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, did you have any more points to raise though? Do you have anything
yes, I
on
just wanted to say.
behavioural? No, you go.
Oh yeah. Just the study study in 2017 from the Bio Initiative Working Group. It stated that by now carcinogenicity, has been shown in human epidemiological studies.
Yep.
Yes, thank you. Replicated in animal studies. Lab studies on RF radiation have shown increased ROS production that can cause DNA strand breaks. So this was evidence to show, that the emissions are basically carcinogenic.
Yep.
And then they do cause harm to the DNA strands. And I just wanted to quote that because it is something that's health related, and there is a lot of other papers and research that have shown that, and it's in that workbook as well that I mentioned. It does actually state other researchers that have done the same, even back in the 1990s, researching about the effects on DNA strands and stuff like this, and cells, which are, the fundamental constructs of our body. So we do need to, I know people might think, oh, it's just the cell in your body or the DNA of your,
but it's
system,
because
but it is,
it is
our basic fundamentals.
Yeah, that's right. And that's the thing, I think, because we can't see it, that's the problem. This is an invisible force that is, causing havoc, basically. And that's why we're trying to. And the other thing is just to verify, in 2011, the World Health Organization did list on their website that EMF was a possible, they only said possible, carcinogenic, which means it's cancer causing. They don't want to go and say outright that it is, because if it was, it would cause goodness knows what sort of havoc, you know, and that's the thing. So they can only say possibly. Anyway.
Yes, they did say possibly.
Because there is so much research out there that does prove that there is
there's
a link, there's an association, there's, correlation, what have you. It's definitely there, but,
exactly,
and that's...
Yes. There is definitely proof about all these effects that are caused by the radiation.
Yeah.
And even if we don't understand exactly how they work or how it's being
emitted into the environment.
Exactly. Yeah, like
or
just because we're not looking at them. Yeah, exactly.
It's still there.
It does damage, and it does damage our health. So
that's right.
This is something we need to address because obviously our health is important. If we don't have our health, then what do we have?
We definitely need our health. I was just going to say, because the other thing is I found someone was saying recently about lead in the environment anyway, and I found a paper that related to EMFs and also ADHD, but also about lead. And I was like, oh, lead's one of those things that came up in the 80s a fair bit.
Oh, okay.
There was, you weren't allowed to let your child eat lead paint on, the bassinet or on the cot.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So,
I did. Yes, also, just to quickly interject to that. Go. Sorry, I did not do research on lead, but I did actually hear from a friend of mine that mentioned that lead actually it does prevent the radiation and emissions from directly going through walls and stuff like that.
Oh, does it?
So, if you've got lead paint or if you've got lead substance, it does prevent the actual emissions coming through as powerful. Wow. So you can use that as...
Is that what they use when you're actually sitting in the, in the dentist chair, and they put that lead vest over you? To stop the radiation going through.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what it, that's probably what it is.
Yeah. Anyway. But it does, apparently. I mean, I have not done my research on that.
Yeah, I was going to say we might need to look into that and just check.
It is, from a reliable friend of mine. So
That's it.
Yeah,
That sounds
you
great.
can check that. Don't take my word for that. I just
Yeah,
wanted
that's
to
right.
mention it.
And you know what? If I find a link on it, I'll post it down the bottom as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yep.
Anyway, so I just wanted to go into this paper because obviously coming from the behavioural studies kind of background, anything to do with behaviour and how EMF affects it, I'm obviously big on that subject. Anyway, so I found this paper which mentions once again mobile phone usage and health effects. And it was written, oh my goodness, by so many different people, and I cannot believe how many people collaborate on this piece of work. This paper was written in 2013, which was titled Mobile Phone Use, Blood Lead Levels and Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Symptoms in Children, and it was a longitudinal study. Anyway, so the hypothesis that they proposed, this is a direct quote, the goal of this study was to examine an association between mobile phone use and risk for ADHD symptoms, considering a possible combined effect with lead exposure. So the Children's Health and Environment Research, which is CHEER, that's the name of it, the Children's acronym, study was performed to investigate environmental factors associated with health outcomes of school-aged children at 27 elementary schools in 10 cities in Korea from 2005 to 2010. The Korean version of the ADHD rating scale, or KARCS, I believe,
Okay. Yep.
was administered to parents or guardians to assess symptoms of the children in 2008 and 2010. This was to measure lead concentrations in blood, so 3 to 5 mils of whole blood was drawn from each child. Just a side note here, which I'm adding, I had to look up what exactly was considered high or low blood levels, as this paper did not explain the current parameters. Thanks to the website healthychildren.org, they explain that children were identified as having a blood lead level of concern if the test result is 10 or more micrograms per deciliter of lead in blood. But, okay, so this was on this website, but now the experts now use a new level based on the US population of children ages 1 to 5 years who are in the top 2.5% of children when tested for lead in their blood. So, so they've changed it. So, however, and this is what it was quoted on their website, it said, however, in January 2012, a committee of experts recommended that the CDC, which is Centers for Disease Control, change its blood lead level of children, and the recommendation was then based on the growing number of studies that show that even low blood lead levels can cause lifelong health effects. Currently, that is now being set to 5 micrograms.
So it's increased?
No, it's decreased. So they're saying high lead levels in children. Instead of being 10, they're now measuring it at 5. 5 micrograms. Okay, per deciliter of lead in blood. This site also states that lead is found in homes and environments, homes built before 1978. May have lead paint and dust particles, like chips of old paint, should be wiped with damp cloth, and always wipe feet or mats before entering the house, especially if you are in occupations that involve lead, like renovations and so forth, or building. Anyway, so back to the paper, because that was just a quick, reiteration, just to give some background information. What they then said was the coefficient of variation for the blood lead levels was 4.9%. Blood level was measured in 2008 to 2010. So they've got 4.9%.
Oh, okay, yep.
So it's sort of like under 5. Anyway, and then they said, interpreting their table 4, which was titled Simultaneous Model of Mobile Phone Use Variables Associated with ADHD in Children, stratified by their blood lead level from 2008 to 2010. And the Korea and the CHEER study. Okay, so the number of children with low blood lead levels was measured less than 2.35, with the number of children in that group being 1,788. And of this, 180 children had ADHD. Whereas the number of children with the high blood lead levels, which was measured at more than 2.3, with the number of children in this group as 600, only 69 had ADHD.
But that's roughly, isn't that about 10% both
Yeah,
times?
10% thereabouts. Yep, 10%. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's a fair amount of people.
Yeah, that's right. So their findings show that in the stratified analysis of blood lead level, the variables of voice call use, which in brackets was the number of outgoing calls per day, average time spent on per voice call, and cumulative time spent for voice calls, showed significant associations and or trends only in children with a high blood lead level. In contrast, high blood lead level. Okay, so in contrast, should I say, use of a mobile phone for playing games or using the internet was significantly associated with ADHD symptoms, but only in children with a low blood level. So low lead blood level.
Yeah.
So multiplicative interaction test between the mobile phone exposure and blood lead in association with ADHD symptoms were significant or borderline significant for those variables of ownership of a phone and the age of first ownership of a mobile phone. So they went into, who had a mobile phone, how long they'd had the mobile phone for.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but keeping in mind this is like 7 to 9-year-olds.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, so a few of them had their phones anyway. But I didn't focus on that part of the paper because I just wanted to focus on
fine. The statistics.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so ownership of a mobile phone, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, and the number of outgoing calls per day. And the risk of ADHD symptoms was higher in the higher lead group than that in the low lead group. So it was still, the high lead group was still winning. Okay, then they said, this study showed that voice call mobile phone use was associated with increased ADHD symptom risk in a dose-response manner. So when they were saying about dose-response manner, was however the form was, so in what dosage. Anyways.
So does that mean...
I really couldn't work that part out.
Didn't say.
They never went into detail about it. They just mentioned it in the results section. So,
because that could mean time, or that could mean...
Yeah, that's exactly right. Time or holding on to the mobile phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't specify, which,
Okay.
Yeah.
No,
if you redo the paper, or if someone else does read the paper again, please. Yeah. Please clarify that. But only in children with a high lead blood level, however. With blah, blah, blah. Anyway, this was what I found very interesting. However, playing games on a mobile phone was associated with ADHD symptoms. Okay.
Does that... Okay, sorry, just to quickly ask you a question.
Yes.
Did they, mention what sort of games, or does that not really...
No, they didn't mention it, which I wish they would have. They did not say that either. Anyway, but they also said that regardless of the blood lead level, and was statistically significant in children with low blood lead levels. Okay, so that's what they were saying. Yeah, ADHD symptoms.
From games.
Yeah, from games, low lead. Anyway, these authors and researchers interpret these results as follows. The voice call variables represented RF exposure to the head rather than other parts of the body. Because a mobile phone is used where a child's head, whereas the other variables did not necessarily reflect RF exposure to the head. So when they're playing games and so forth, it's not next to their head. So the finding that voice call mobile phone use was associated with ADHD symptoms supports the hypothesis that RF exposure to children's heads from mobile phone use increases their vulnerability to lead exposure and ADHD, i.e. that is possible modifying effects of blood lead on the association between RF exposure from mobile phone use and ADHD symptoms. In contrast, though, the increased risk in children who spent more time playing games on a mobile phone suggested that such behaviour might be as a consequence of ADHD, i.e. that is the reverse causality, or might be one of the risk factors for ADHD-like symptoms. And that was also, so they paraphrased someone else's quote there. rather than the effect of radiofrequency exposure to the brain.
So is ADHD something that would be at all genetic or passed down through?
Well, it must be, because
lineage or something?
as I
Yeah.
understand ADHD, which is it's explained in abnormal psychology, it's on par with autism, which means the two parts of the brain don't communicate. Well, that's not even correct either. Two parts of the brain, they sort of crossfire at different rates. So, and that's what I mean. ADHD, it tends to speed up the brain. So it's very hard for a
Yeah.
person to focus on something. I swear to God, my child has it. Anyway, because my child can't focus on anything for
I
more
do
than
think
3
that-
seconds. But
yeah.
once again, that could be the mobile phone
Exactly.
as well. So it
yeah.
could be causing the problems with, how the
Yeah.
neurons are firing. I don't know. Maybe I can look into that as well and come back to you with an answer on that.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering because, I mean, in terms of ADHD, I think as a society there is a mild undertone of ADHD with
Yeah,
most
that's right.
people
Yeah.
because, I mean, we do tend to be in a fast-paced sort of environment, and
Absolutely.
it does
It
feed
interferes.
through that.
Yeah, that's right. It interferes with how much we can concentrate, how much we can take in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it
if you've
does.
seen me after a couple of coffees, oh my goodness, you'd assume that I had ADHD. And I'm sure a lot of my friends could attest to that. Anyway, so then they went on to say, recent studies show that the cognitive function of school-aged children is affected by mobile phone use. That's across the board. But the results were interpreted as behavioural learning effects from frequent use of a mobile phone rather than the effect of RF exposure by using a mobile phone. However, the behaviour of children and adolescents is associated with radiofrequency electromagnetic network exposure when measured directly for 24 hours. So that's someone else's work that they have paraphrased and said it has been shown in the past that that's what can occur.
Yeah.
So in a sense, Rose, this is the case of maybe which came first, the chicken or the egg? Is it the mobile phone causing ADHD? Well, not causing, associated. Or is it the radio frequencies from the phone causing ADHD? One of the biggest debates that always kept occurring in first and second year psychology was whether playing violent video games, because you asked about video games, led to violent behaviour.
Yeah.
For all the naysayers, there were just as many yay-sayers. So playing devil's advocate here, what if parents of ADHD children just want a moment's peace and quiet, so they put their overexcited and hyperactive child in front of a PlayStation, which has Wi-Fi capabilities, or a mobile phone to have a reprieve? Is this device really the cause of the behaviour patterns? This is what we've got to ask. In psych, we're always trying to locate the root cause and prevent the behaviour from occurring. Honestly, I've never thought that RF waves could cause violent or anger tendencies, but the more I see stressed people, the more I'm inclined to think that mobile devices, they are, religiously holding is not helping them to switch off. And once again, I digress.
Oh yes, no, that's fine, because I do think it's multifaceted, this technology and the frequencies that are emitting and all these applications that are on there, and the dopamines that are affecting our brains from notifications, and it's just endless the amount of things that technology, I mean, this is a digression as well, but it is reflecting our own being, essentially, our consciousness, our, essence.
Yeah, it's
and
affecting
it is something that's just mirroring us, I believe. So it does, it does affect us because it's, basically mimicking us and needs us to function. So I'm not against technology. I'm just saying that the future of technology, if people do their research and understand the corporations and understand where it's headed is quite scary. So I'm just putting it out towards everyone to do their own research.
That's right.
Because it is, it's mainstream. It's not just fringe. It's, you can find all this information based on spokespersons from Google, from Facebook,
Yeah.
whoever you want to check. They are all
They're all out
Silicon
there.
Valley based big name corporations that have one purpose for AI. And the current level of technology that we have, I feel, is already a bit out of our hands and much that we can't comprehend. And I feel like the more that we do this, the more that we forget ourselves.
That's right.
And we need to say no to what we can't handle.
That's right. And that's why we're doing this. This is why we're trying to discuss it, and we're trying to find links from papers that people, and it's a lot
Exactly.
of, there's a fair few of us out there trying to work out what the association is, what the link is, but the problem is, as they say, it's going to take 4 to 5 years for a paper to be released, to get
That's
funding on it. And this is the thing, we feel that there's not enough time. Even time for people to research this information. That's why we're trying to do it as well, because we're trying to save people the time to go out there and start looking things up for themselves.
Yeah,
we're trying to do half of it for you and just share what we do know.
Exactly.
But the thing is, it could end up being too late. We might be, we might not have the time, and that's the thing. These health effects are coming out one by one by one by one. But, and technology has moved in the last 15 years or 20 years that we've never seen before.
Yeah.
Smaller devices, smaller technologies. But the thing is, they haven't done the testing. They don't know what it's going to cause to humans. And that's what we're worried about. And it's not just us. It's about the next generation. We're doing it for our kids.
We have to think of our kids' kids.
Yeah.
If you don't have kids, just think of humanity in general. I don't have kids, but I do have a passion, and I don't want to see our Earth being destroyed because of greedy corporations and what they
the bottom
plan.
line. Yeah, that's right.
Because at the end of the day, we are the ones that make the decision, because this is our Earth, it's not theirs. No matter how much they like to claim that it's theirs.
Yeah, that's right. It's not.
We have the decision, and it does come to the fact that we have rights here, and we are free to say no when we think or believe
it's wrong. It's wrong, or it's going to cause detrimental health effects.
Yes.
And the other thing is, Rose and I are going to try and do some more podcasts in regards to this.
Yes, definitely.
Because as we trying to uncover more research, but we just don't want to bombard all our listeners.
Too much.
Yeah, that's right. With too much information at once.
Yeah.
So I think we'll probably.
Because now, so for today, we covered the health topics, basically.
Yeah.
And we do have other topics that we'd like to go on probably another time.
Animal, because I've got experiments that they conduct on animals, and I haven't finished fully my research, so I'll look into that a bit further.
Yeah, we'll do that together next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we do have more research, but for today, I think we'll just wrap it up and we'll keep it at that, because I feel like that's probably the most important information, because our health is the one that's at stake here.
Yeah.
So we'll just keep it at that, I guess.
Yes, that's right. Anyway, we hope you all have a lovely day.
Yes. We'd just like to thank everyone that's helped us along our journey as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it has been quite a rough journey, and we do really appreciate if you support this movement, or whatever you call it, activism that we're doing. Please contact us, especially if you're in the area of Parramatta.
Yeah,
we need people that are
local.
Exactly, and that are willing to support this, because we can't do this alone. There's no way that we can just be by ourselves in this.
Yeah, that's right.
We need to unite. That's the only way that we can. And I feel like this is probably the tipping point where everyone decides, they need to stand up for their rights, basically. And this is a basic human right to have health. And so we've done, you know, basic research and we've got basic understandings of what's happening.
That's right.
And we don't want anyone to lose their health, or we don't want our earth to be polluted
or harmed. Yeah,
exactly.
To the point where it can't be fixed. So,
Yeah,
and that's the thing that could happen, and especially the animal life as well. And that's
exactly.
We want the animals to also survive.
Yes.
You know, and we don't want them affected. Anyway.
Yeah.
We'll go into that further next time, I think.
Yeah. All right. So we thank you for your time today. Please share the word because, like we both agree on, it needs to be spread.
Yeah, absolutely. Spread it to your friends, family, whoever.
Yes. And we'll leave our email addresses on the link.
Yeah, as well.
Like me and Mel. Yep. So you can contact either of us.
Yep.
And then
sounds good.
Yeah. We'll leave it at that.